Ethan hadn't planned on starting over again, but life rarely asked for permission. After his breakup with Ryan, the silence of his old apartment became unbearable. The rooms that once felt warm now echoed with memories he didn't want to replay. When his old college friend Jason called and said, "Hey, I've got a spare room if you need it," Ethan accepted before he could overthink it. Maybe a new place would help him breathe again. When he arrived in Seattle's gray drizzle, suitcase in hand, Jason met him at the door with his usual grin. "Man, you look like you've been through it," he joked lightly, pulling Ethan into a quick brotherly hug. The apartment smelled of coffee and fresh paint. It was smaller than Ethan expected, but cozy, the kind of place that felt lived in. Jason pointed down the hallway. "About that room. A small update. It's being renovated. Just a few weeks. You can crash in my room until then." Ethan paused, his tired mind processing the words. "In your room?" "Yeah, there's enough space," Jason said, opening the door to reveal a single queen-sized bed. "We'll manage." "I don't snore, I promise." Ethan laughed nervously, unsure whether to feel amused or awkward. "Guess I can't be picky right now." That first night, neither of them spoke much. Jason fell asleep almost instantly, the soft rhythm of his breathing filling the quiet room. Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how strange it felt to share a bed with someone again. The last time he had done that, it was with Ryan, and those memories hurt more than he wanted to admit. He turned to face the wall, pretending the soft brush of Jason's shoulder didn't make his heart race in confusion. Morning came with the smell of coffee. Jason was already in the kitchen, shirtless, flipping pancakes like it was the easiest thing in the world. "You like them with blueberries or plain?" he asked, smiling. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. "You're really doing the whole roommate experience, huh?" "Hey, I try to impress my guests," Jason said, sliding a plate across the counter. The days slipped by gently. Ethan found a new routine. Early mornings at the gym with Jason, afternoons working remotely, and evenings watching old movies. The laughter that had disappeared from his life slowly returned, quietly and without warning. Jason was the kind of person who filled every room with ease. He'd tease Ethan for his quietness, then balance it with small acts of care, cooking dinner, fixing a broken chair, remembering how Ethan liked his coffee. It wasn't romantic. At least that's what Ethan told himself. It was comfort, friendship, safety. One rainy evening, the sky bruised purple and gray, Ethan sat by the window, sketching designs on his tablet. Jason joined him with 2 mugs of tea. "You've been quiet tonight," Jason said softly. "Just tired," Ethan replied. "Ryan called earlier." Jason raised an eyebrow. "The Ryan?" Ethan nodded. Didn't answer. Didn't know what to say. Jason didn't push. He simply handed over the mug and said, "Good. You don't owe him words he doesn't deserve." The simplicity of the statement hit Ethan harder than expected. No judgment, no advice, just quiet understanding. It made something inside him loosen. When the power flickered out later that night, they laughed at the timing. Jason lit a candle, the flame throwing soft gold across the walls. "Romantic lighting?" he joked. Ethan rolled his eyes. "Please." Still, he couldn't ignore how the light made everything feel smaller, closer. Jason threw a blanket around Ethan's shoulders. "You're freezing," he said, sitting beside him on the couch. Ethan could hear the rain against the glass, the steady rhythm mixing with his heartbeat. "Thanks," he murmured. Jason shrugged. "You'd do the same." They stayed there in silence for a while, the air between them heavier than before but not uncomfortable. It wasn't attraction in the physical sense. It was something quieter, like recognition. Jason wasn't filling the hole Ryan left. He was helping Ethan remember what it felt like to be seen. When they finally went to bed, Ethan felt more at ease than he had in months. He lay beside Jason, the distance between them respectful but fragile. He thought about how strange it was, that healing could come from someone he never expected. Jason whispered into the dark, "You'll be okay, you know." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm starting to believe that." The sound of rain softened against the window, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan drifted into sleep, feeling safe. Not because someone was holding him, but because someone cared enough not to. Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and the soft hum of Jason moving around the kitchen. Morning light filtered through the blinds, painting stripes across the wooden floor. For a moment, he forgot about everything. Ryan, the breakup, the uncertainty of starting over. Then reality returned, slow and heavy, like a weight settling on his chest. Jason glanced up from the stove. "You're up early." "That's new," Ethan smiled faintly, taking a seat at the counter. "Couldn't sleep." Jason poured him a mug of coffee and leaned against the counter, watching him. Still thinking about him? Ethan didn't need to ask who him was. Yeah, sometimes it feels like he's still everywhere. His stuff, his words, even his silence, Jason nodded. Takes time. You don't have to rush the process. They ate breakfast in easy quiet, the kind of silence that didn't feel awkward. Jason had a way of grounding Ethan, never pushing, never asking for more than Ethan could give. It was strange how someone so different from Ryan could make him feel understood. Over the next few days, Ethan started noticing small things he hadn't before. The way Jason hummed while cleaning, how he always left the bathroom light on by accident, the way he made room for Ethan without making a big deal out of it. They shared jokes, little glances, half smiles that carried more warmth than words ever could. But one Friday evening, the fragile calm broke. Ethan was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Jason called out, "You expecting someone?" Before Ethan could answer, the voice he knew too well drifted in. "Hey, Ethan." Ryan stood in the doorway, confident as ever, carrying that same smirk that had once melted Ethan's defenses. He looked around the apartment, his eyes pausing on Jason before landing back on Ethan. "So this is where you've been hiding." Ethan froze. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" "Just wanted to talk," Ryan said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. Jason's polite smile didn't reach his eyes. He nodded once. "I'll give you two a minute," he said, heading toward the gym downstairs. The door closed behind him, leaving a heavy quiet. Ryan exhaled, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets. "You look good." "Better than I expected." "Ryan," Ethan said cautiously, "I don't think this is a good idea. Come on, don't be like that. I've been thinking about us, about how things ended. Maybe we just needed space." Ethan's throat tightened. "Space doesn't fix what we broke." Ryan stepped closer, his voice dropping. "You can't tell me you don't miss what we had." Ethan didn't answer. For a second, he thought about the laughter, the late-night talks, the way Ryan used to hold him like he'd never let go. But then he remembered the fights, the loneliness, the way he'd felt small even while being loved. "I miss the idea of us," Ethan said quietly. Not the reality. Ryan looked hurt, then frustrated. "So what, this guy, Jason, he's the reason you won't even try?" Ethan's eyes widened. "Jason has nothing to do with this," Ryan scoffed. "Sure he doesn't." When he finally left, the apartment felt both heavier and lighter at once. Ethan sat on the couch, head in his hands. His heart was pounding, not because of love, but because of clarity. An hour later, Jason returned. "You okay?" he asked gently. Ethan nodded, though the motion felt forced. He wanted to talk, to fix things. Jason sat across from him. "And do you want that?" "I don't know." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "Part of me does. The part that hates letting go. But another part..." He trailed off. Jason leaned forward slightly. "The part that's tired of being hurt?" Ethan met his gaze. Jason didn't look away. There was no pity there, just quiet understanding. "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered. "You shouldn't have had to deal with that scene." Jason shrugged. "You don't have to apologize for your past. But you should stop letting it live in your present." For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Then Ethan said, barely above a whisper, "You ever wish you could just stop feeling for someone who isn't good for you?" Jason's smile was sad but kind. "All the time. But that's not how people work. You don't erase feelings. You outgrow them." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep again. He stared at the ceiling, the space between him and Jason somehow smaller than before. The emotional tension wasn't about romance. It was about trust, about wanting to feel safe again. In the dark, Jason's voice broke the silence. You're allowed to start over, Ethan. You don't owe anyone your pain. Ethan turned slightly toward him. I don't even know what starting over looks like. Jason's hand brushed lightly against his arm, a reassuring gesture, nothing more. It looks like this, he said softly. You're here. You're healing. That's enough. Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time, he let the thought settle that maybe healing didn't mean falling in love again. It meant learning how to stand on his own, with someone beside him who didn't ask for more than honesty. As the room filled with the quiet hum of the city outside, Ethan realized he didn't feel alone anymore. Whatever this was between them, friendship, care, connection, it was helping him remember who he was before the heartbreak. He turned to Jason and whispered, "Thank you." Jason smiled faintly in the dark. "Anytime, Rumi." The tension between them lingered, unspoken but safe, like the space between two people who knew better than to rush what didn't need to be rushed. Outside, rain began to fall again, steady and cleansing, washing away the last traces of yesterday. Ethan woke early the next morning, the first light of dawn spilling through the blinds in soft gold lines. For a moment he just lay there, listening to the faint sounds of the city waking up. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Jason moving around in the kitchen. He could smell coffee, rich and warm, drifting through the air. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. Jason glanced over his shoulder when he walked in, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. "Morning, Rumi." "Coffee's ready." Ethan returned the smile. "Thanks." "You're up early, old habits," Jason said. "Can't sleep past 6 no matter what I do." He handed Ethan a mug. "Rough night?" Ethan nodded. "Yeah, Ryan showed up, really stirred things up." "I didn't sleep much." Jason leaned against the counter, his eyes steady but kind. "You don't have to explain. I get it." They stood there quietly for a while, sipping coffee. The sunlight reached across the counter between them, soft and warm. Ethan stared into his mug. He said he wanted to fix things, he murmured. "Like we could just go back to how it was." Jason didn't respond right away. "Do you want to?" Ethan let out a slow breath. "I don't know. I thought I did. But when I saw him last night, it felt like I was standing in a memory that doesn't fit anymore." Jason nodded, setting his mug down. "Sometimes the hardest part isn't leaving someone. It's accepting that they're not supposed to come with you where you're going next." Ethan looked up at him, taking in his calm tone, the steady patience in his eyes. Jason never pushed, never told him what to do. He just listened. And somehow that helped Ethan more than any advice ever could. Later that afternoon, Ethan decided he needed closure. He called Ryan and asked to meet at a small cafe nearby. When he arrived, Ryan was already there, looking almost exactly the same. Same confident posture, same easy smile, but somehow it didn't feel familiar anymore. They talked quietly over coffee. Ryan apologized for the past, saying he'd been selfish, careless, that he wanted to try again. Ethan listened, really listened, for the first time without anger or heartbreak clouding his thoughts. When Ryan finished, Ethan took a moment before answering. "I appreciate you saying that," he said softly, "and I forgive you. But I don't think we're meant to keep trying to fix something that keeps breaking." Ryan frowned. "Is there someone else?" Ethan hesitated. "There's someone who reminded me what kindness feels like. Someone who doesn't make me question who I am." Ryan looked down, then gave a quiet nod. "I guess that's my answer." When Ethan left the cafe, the sky had cleared. The air felt crisp, clean. He walked home slowly, each step lighter than the last. For the first time, the idea of being alone didn't scare him. It felt peaceful. Back at the apartment, Jason was sitting on the couch, laptop open, headphones around his neck. He looked up when Ethan walked in. "Hey, you good?" Ethan nodded, dropping his bag by the door. "Yeah, I talked to him." "It's done." Jason studied him for a moment, then smiled. "You look lighter." "I feel lighter," Ethan said. He sank onto the couch beside him. "You were right. Sometimes you have to stop holding on to what's already gone." Jason closed his laptop and leaned back. "So what now?" Ethan shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe just keep living. Figure out what comes next." Jason nodded thoughtfully. That sounds like a good plan. The afternoon light shifted slowly, spilling over the room in warm shades of orange. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled with words. After a while, Ethan glanced over. "Hey, Jason? Yeah? Thanks for letting me stay. For being patient with me," Jason smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. You just needed a place to breathe." "I'm glad I could give you that," Ethan returned the smile. "You gave me more than that." Jason looked away, pretending to focus on something outside the window. "Well then, I'm glad you're here." They didn't talk about what came next, didn't label what they were or what they could be. It wasn't about romance, not yet. It was about understanding, about finding peace after the storm. As evening settled, Jason turned on a small lamp, filling the room with a soft glow. They shared another quiet moment, sipping tea, watching the city lights flicker through the window. Ethan realized then that healing didn't have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it was just this, two people sitting in quiet company, learning how to be okay again. Before heading to bed, Jason stretched and said, "You know, the spare room's almost ready." "You might finally get your own bed," Ethan laughed. "Maybe, but I think I'll miss the company," Jason grinned. "Careful. I might start charging rent for emotional support." They both laughed, the sound easy and genuine. The kind of laughter that comes from knowing the hardest part is behind you. That night, as Ethan lay in bed, he thought about how far he'd come since the day he walked into this apartment. He wasn't the same person anymore. He'd learned that love didn't always mean staying. It could also mean letting go, choosing peace, choosing yourself. The rain started again outside, soft and steady, but this time it didn't sound lonely. It sounded like a promise that life would keep moving forward, one quiet, healing moment at a time. Ethan closed his eyes and smiled. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't waiting for someone to save him. He'd already found what he needed: understanding, peace, and the courage to start again.